Jim Morrison was born on December 8, 1943, in Melbourne, Florida, USA. His father was an officer in the United States Navy. Because of this, the family moved very often. Jim never stayed long in one place. As a young boy, Jim was intelligent and very curious. He loved books and spent many hours reading. He was especially interested in poetry, philosophy, and history. While other children played outside, Jim often sat alone and read strange and deep stories. One event from his childhood stayed in his mind forever. When Jim was a boy, he saw a terrible car accident in the desert. Native Americans had been injured and killed. Years later, Jim said that the spirits of those people entered his soul. Nobody knows if this really changed him, but Jim often spoke about it. In school, he was different from the other students. He did not like rules and authority. Sometimes he shocked teachers with strange comments and unusual behavior, but he was also very talented. In the 1960s, Jim moved to Los Angeles and studied film at UCLA, the University of California. During this time, he wrote poems and song ideas. He wanted to create art that was powerful and emotional. One day, Jim met a musician named Ray Manzarek on Venice Beach. Ray heard Jim sing one of his songs called Moonlight Drive. He was deeply impressed. Together, they decided to form a band. That band would soon become famous around the world. The name of the band was The Doors. The Doors quickly became one of the most unusual rock bands in America. The group included Jim Morrison, Ray Manzarek, Robbie Krieger, and John Densmore. Jim Morrison was not a normal singer. On stage, he was wild, mysterious, and unpredictable. Sometimes he looked calm and hypnotic. Other times he screamed, danced, or frightened the audience. In 1967, the Doors released their first album. One song became especially famous, Light My Fire. The song was a huge success and reached number one in the United States. Soon the Doors were international stars. Jim Morrison became a symbol of freedom and rebellion. Many young people loved him because he spoke openly about emotions, society, fear, death, and human desire. His lyrics sounded like poetry more than normal rock music. But fame also changed Jim. He began drinking heavily and used drugs more often. Sometimes he arrived late to concerts or forgot the lyrics. Some performances ended in chaos. One famous concert in Miami in 1969 created a huge scandal. Jim behaved strangely on stage, and some people claimed he exposed himself in front of the audience. He was arrested later and faced serious legal problems. The media called him dangerous. But despite the scandals, many fans still saw Jim Morrison as a genius. His voice, his words, and his dark personality made him unforgettable. Behind the fame, however, Jim was becoming more lonely and exhausted. By the early 1970s, Jim Morrison was tired of fame. He no longer enjoyed being treated like a rock star. He wanted people to respect him as a poet and thinker. His health was getting worse. Alcohol became a serious problem. Friends noticed that Jim looked older and heavier than before. The wild lifestyle was slowly destroying him. Jim often felt trapped. Many fans expected him to behave like the Lizard King, his famous stage character. But inside, Jim was searching for peace and meaning. In 1971, Jim decided to leave Los Angeles and move to Paris, France, with his girlfriend, Pamela Corson. Paris was a city full of art, literature, and history. Jim hoped he could begin a quieter life there. In Paris, he spent much of his time walking through the streets, drinking wine, writing poems, and visiting cafes. Sometimes he seemed happier, but his unhealthy habits continued. Nobody around him fully understood how fragile he had become. Jim Morrison was only 27 years old, but years of alcohol, smoking, stress, and drug use had damaged his body deeply. Then came the night that changed everything. On July 3rd, 1971, Jim Morrison died in Paris. According to the official story, Pamela Corson found him dead in the bathtub of their apartment. The official cause of death was heart failure, but many people have questioned the story for decades. There was no official autopsy because French law did not require one. This created many rumors and conspiracy theories. Some people believed Jim died from a drug overdose. Others thought there was a cover-up. Even today, nobody knows exactly what happened during Jim Morrison's final hours. His death shocked the world. Jim became part of the tragic 27 Club, a group of famous musicians who died at the age of 27, including Jimi Hendrix and Janis Joplin. Thousands of fans mourned him. Jim Morrison was buried at Père Lachaise Cemetery in Paris. His grave quickly became one of the most visited graves in the world. Fans came from many countries to leave flowers, letters, poems, and candles. For many people, Jim Morrison became more than a singer. He became a legend. More than 50 years after his death, Jim Morrison still fascinates people around the world. Why? Part of the answer is his mystery. Jim Morrison lived like a man searching for something deeper than fame or money. He wanted freedom, truth, and intense experiences. His music reflected both beauty and darkness. The songs of the Doors are still played today. Tracks like Riders on the Storm, The End, and People Are Strange continue to inspire musicians and listeners. Jim's image also became iconic: the leather pants, the long hair, the deep voice, and the serious eyes. He looked like a poet from another world, but behind the legend was also a human being, a man who struggled with pressure, addiction, loneliness, and inner conflict. Some people see Jim Morrison as a warning about fame and self-destruction. Others see him as a fearless artist who lived exactly as he wanted. Perhaps the truth is somewhere in between. Jim Morrison once said, "No one here gets out alive." Those words became one of his most famous quotes, and even today, decades after his death, the voice of Jim Morrison still echoes through the world of rock music.